Okay, this is a quick, hopefully, log analysis. We're off to a good start. Based on this request on r/competitive WoW. I'm making this as much for myself as the person it's actually for. Um, my hope is that when I watch this back later on, I'll be like, okay, well, maybe this wasn't right or this was done well. And for this person, Articunyo, I think it's important that as you're doing your own analysis, you've said that you've looked over your logs and such. My counter analysis, I think it's important that you see how I do it, as well as why I do what I do, so that you can evaluate whether my feedback is actually worth anything. Perhaps I make some false assumptions, or what have you. So, first thing we do, open up the fight. This is Varamathras. We're going to look at your character real quick. Just want to check for foresight. It's fine. Trinket's a little questionable, but I assume you already know that and just don't have better options. Obviously, you would want the Acrid Catalyst garbage that your other mage friend has. Something that stuck out to me here, you're gemming for haste and enchanting for it. Initially, I thought that was rare suspect, as your character is not currently at the crit soft cap of 33.3%. However, I did actually sim your character, and it's like, yeah, you're pretty much on the money. Like, without those enchants, haste would probably be ahead of verse, so that's fine. The other enchant was Mark of the Claw. This one I'm not so convinced on, but it's difficult to analyze fully. My gut instinct would be Mark of the Satyr, but whatever. Your talents look fine, and that's fine. The reason I look at this first is because if there's anything like egregiously wrong here, it's just a completely free fix, right? Like, say you were gemmed for mastery or whatever, but that's obviously not the case. So there's nothing to really fix here that I can see. Just looking at your relics, obviously this is suboptimal, but I assume if you had better relics you would be using them. Okay, now that we've looked at that, let's just go back to this view of your whole raid. So the first thing to look at here is just your overall damage, right? This number, it's not meaningless, but it's really not the most important thing. The most important thing is here, your eye level percentage parse. This indicates that there is something fundamentally incorrect about what you're doing, and obviously we're not sure what it is, but as we go into your logs, we would hope to find at least one clear error to account for this, possibly more. So let's figure out what's going on here. Your damage percentages look fine-ish. The Blizzard is a little bit questionable. I'm assuming, and we could look into this by going into the replay function, like figuring out, okay, you cast Blizzard here. Was this when you were moving, or was it not? But like, one Blizzard is not going to make or break a parse, right? I'm assuming you did that when you were moving and when you had an instant free cast Blizzard, which is probably fine. Instead, let's look at your Icy Veins. So here at the start of the poll, here about 2 minutes 8, and let's just make sure you're syncing up your second heroism with that. Yep, that's fine. So this is how we kind of go about it. We just like look at things that could be going wrong and just narrow down and down and down until we find out what's actually going wrong. I assume this. Yep, that's synced up too. That looks great. No problems there. Let's look at your trinket. Yep, you were pretty much using it right on the minute. You're actually much better at that than I am. Okay. Let's look at your brain freezes. You had 23 brain freezes, which should equate to, if I just copy this, paste and go here, 23 casts of Flurry. Cast by source. Only interested in Flurry right now. 23. Perfect. Let's look at, oops, Fingers of Frost. 25. That seems low. I'd be curious why there's such a big gap here and here. But anyway, that should equate to 25 ace lances, which I happen to know from the Reddit thread is likely to not be correct. 70 ace lances. That's a lot of ace lances. Wait, 4. That's quite a few. And like, it's clear there's gaps in here, so it's not like you're just doing this on a whim. I remember reading in the Reddit thread that you were doing it when you were moving, but it looks like there's even more than would be accounted for that. Well, let's make sure that there's nothing incorrect about that. Let's look at your damage done for ace lance. The thing we're interested in here is the crit percent. So if we take your crit percent, it's 26%, times 1.5 plus 50. So if you were only doing critical ace lances, we would expect around an 89% crit rate. Give or take, right? There is some statistical variance there. We're nowhere near that. We're off by 20%. So almost 1 in 5 of your ace lances were almost definitely wrong. So you've got 70 ace lances. A fifth of them is like 15 or something. It doesn't matter. But like, that's a lot of ace lances that are going wrong. So first one we got, if we get a notepad, a lot of ace lances. We'll come back to that later. Maybe. Depends what else we find. The other thing, very fundamental thing for mages, always be casting. Let's just figure out if you were always casting. Ebon Bolt, Flurry. Huh. Yeah, so Ebon Bolt's a long cast, but you're doing this fine. This Ebon Bolt, Flurry, ace lance. Perfect. This gap here is rather suspect. Oh. I can see you have an ace block, so I'm going to guess that you had to get out of the party, but let's look. So this is about 142. So what forced your ace block? Because that's a pretty significant gap there. Let's see, we'll look at 139. I see you already have the debuff. Huh. Okay. Right, so I guess the question here is, right, even if supposing blinking out and ice blocking is the right move, which I disagree with, but we'll come back to. Ice block. Why are you then sitting in the ice block for all this time? Yeah, that's like a significant amount of downtime you're having for no reason there. So you can look at the encounter journal to figure out like how much damage you need to actually mitigate, but honestly, if you just ice barrier, run out, and then either blink or run back in, you will almost 100% of the time completely survive that mechanic. And if it is getting to the stage where you will not survive that mechanic, you can cold snap a second ice barrier, and there is absolutely no way that you should die with 2 ice barriers because they can go through the healing absorption. So ice blocking, period, for this mechanic is not the right way to do it. But even if you were going to do it, like, there's no reason to just sit in the ice block for that long doing next to nothing. But yeah, I would definitely instead just run out with ice barrier. It'll get popped, you go down to like 3/4, maybe half health, and then just come straight back in. Like, it's really not a huge issue. Like, I'm sure if you look at other people who get that mechanic. And your raids. Okay, so this guy, what's he do? This is your other mage friend. Yeah, he just goes out, blinks back in, and he just keeps casting. And like, he's low, but it doesn't actually matter, right? Like, it's not like, oh my god, that's such a strain on the healers or anything like that. And I'm sure it's the same for other people. So it's nice that you have the mindset, I'll go out, I'll ice block, I won't be a strain on the healers. But unless you're actually dying from that mechanic, or you're actively straining your healers, there's no reason to jump through all those holes. Like, that's a big old downtime for no real reason there. Especially when, as I say, you have Ice Barrier, plus Cold Snap, plus Ice Barrier. You know, if you really want to be that survivable. Source. I know it doesn't seem much, like... I mean, it actually should seem much, like 10 seconds in a 4-minute fight. That's... of doing nothing, that could be extra procs. I want to look at... your actual frost bolting. Because, when I looked at your buffs for Fingers of Frost, this gap here, this gap could completely be legitimate. But, like, what were you doing between 16 seconds and 105? Was there a... let's actually look. Let's narrow it down to, like, here. Let's see. You had a couple of... like, you had a lot of brain freezes, so that will probably account for a decent amount of it. Yeah, so you were getting lucky with brain freezes, but unlucky with Fingers of Frosts. You're also getting really lucky with your trinket. Huh. Let's look though, in that time. Let's replay. Let's see, Frostbolt, Brain Freeze, Flurry, Ice Lance. Oh, what? Wait, hang on. What's going on here? Let's pause that and do it at half speed. Alright. So, Frostbolt, Flurry, Ice Lance. Ice Lance? Question mark? Like, I don't think you're getting the double shatter there. Flurry, Ice Lance. Ice Lance. Whoa! Is this what you're doing? Are you always double Ice Lancing? Alright, let's see. Frostbolt, Flurry, Ice Lance. Ice Lance. Hey! I think we figured out what you're doing. Let's see if you do it again. Frostbolt, Flurry, Ice Lance. Ice. Okay, so, right. Ignore the transmog. I was doing some on my character to try and see if I could replicate your stat weights, because I didn't believe them the first time I looked them up, but I looked them with my own character and it was like, yep, okay. So, I wasn't actually planning to log into my character for this. Okay, so this is honestly probably where a lot of your DPS is going down. This is a... remember I said at the start we're looking for like a fundamental issue here? The issue that you should focus on is Ice Lancing properly. That's where most of your DPS is going away. So I understand what you're trying to do. Let me get a Brain Freeze proc. Wait, I can just force one. Okay, so you gotta remember, you're in melee range. If I Frostbolt, Flurry, Brain Freeze, or if I do the combo, the first one will crit, the second one will not. You've obviously heard about double Ice Lancing after Brain Freeze. Let's see if I can get another one. The thing I would say about that is, honestly, don't worry about it, but if I can force a proc here, ever. Okay. So, the way you do that is you have to launch the Flurry at one point, but like finish closer to the boss for the second Ice Lance. So if I do it from like here, well, I didn't actually see if that crit or not, but that's the premise behind it. Like, if you're not closing distance, you will not get it. And honestly, for the times you'll fail it, it's really, really just not worth the hassle. If you get like really, really good, like you're parsing like 90s, 95s, then worry about double shattering. But if that's where you're going wrong, is you're just constantly double Ice Lancing after that, then if you just stop doing that, you'll be completely fine. Let's look at another attempt on a different boss and see if you're doing it there too. So let's watch you for starting with Buzzard. Oh no, okay, you start with Volt and get the free Buzzard, of course. Oh, here we go. Yeah, you're doing it here too. Are you moving? Are you actually even moving forward? I wasn't watching your character. Don't get me wrong. I can see that you are very slightly inching a tiny bit forward, but like there you go, the double ace lands. So this is your fundamental issue. It's Frostbolt, Flurry, Ace Lance, back to filler. So Frostbolt, Flurry, Ace Lance, back to filler. Just stop doing the second Ice Lance and your DPS will pretty dramatically go up. Hey, there we go. That wasn't too bad. Alright, let me know if this actually helps you. But yeah, take it easy. Yeah.